Recovering blocks and resaving posts sucks. We have some good news. The new hybrid block type completely removes the need to do both. Let's take a closer look. Here, we have a simple block. It's an info card with an editable title, description, image, and inner content area that can take any subblock. Now, the block type we're using here is the default one, which is a regular JavaScript React-based block. This is the standard type most people use. Alright, now that we've got our block set up, let's go ahead and export the plugin. If we're using PineGrow on a desktop, like I am right now, we'll need to open up the theme settings, and from there, select the export folder. Now, the folder we're going to select should ideally be located in the WP content/plugins folder. Once you've got your folder selected, save your settings, and now, let's move on to exporting the plugin. With that done, we can now make the leap into the WordPress dashboard and give our block a test run. First, we have to navigate to the Plugins section and activate our newly created Hybrid Info Card plugin. Now let's jump to a sample page to see our block in action. And here, we should be able to find our info card example. Let's add it to the page. Let's open up the sidebar now. Now remember, this is a React editable block, so we have the convenience of editing the information right here on the page. Pretty cool, right? Let's go ahead and add a description and change the image to personalize our block. I'm going to skip over these details for now and just jump ahead to show you the page that I've created. This page uses our info card block to display 4 distinct stories about surfing. Looks good, right? This represents a typical situation we often encounter in our projects. Our custom blocks, like the one we just created, are used for displaying the content in a bunch of different places. And if we go into the editor, you'll see that the content is really easy to edit. Just click around the block and edit the content. Now let's make a change to our React block and see what happens. Let's add a vertical line below the description for a little extra flair. We'll hide the visual helper for now so that we can see it better. Let's do some basic styling to make our block look even better. We'll just use inline styles to keep it simple. Let's add a bit of margin on the bottom and on the top to give our block some breathing room. Let's make the width 70%. This will give our block a nice balanced look. And we'll set the margin left to 0. Also, let's set the top border to 1px for a clean, sharp look. And there it is, our nice divider. It looks great, but what happens to our blocks? Now we go again and export the plugin. Let's refresh our page to see the changes. But wait, the divider is missing. Any idea why that might be? It seems like the old version of blocks are shown, but why is that? Well, it's because we are using React blocks, and React blocks are rendered at the time when we save the page, not when the page is displayed. The rendered HTML is stored in the page content. This means we have to go back into the editor and edit every page where these blocks are used. That's a hassle, right? The first step to getting the updated blocks to show up is to recover each block. The structure of the block has changed, and WordPress compares it to the previously saved version. If it doesn't match, the block needs to be recovered. WordPress has no way to do that automatically. After clicking 4 times on the block recover for each block, we finally see our updated block. Phew! Now we can save it and view it on the page. Ready to see the result? But imagine having hundreds of pages with hundreds of such blocks. Can you imagine the workload? Doing this process on each single block instance is a huge pain, isn't it? First of all, having to find all the pages where the block is used. Then opening these pages in the editor, recovering each block instance and saving the page. Sounds tedious, right? It's a long, error-prone process, far from the ideal. And that's the problem with native React-based blocks. Let's go back to PineGrow and see how we can solve this. Go back to the block action. Let's change the block type to dynamic PHP block. What are dynamic blocks? Dynamic PHP blocks are rendered on the server with PHP code. They are rendered at the time the page is displayed. Because of that, they are always up to date. Let's change the block. For example, let's swap the order of the image and the content. Export the plugin again. Simply reloading the page should be enough to see the change. But here we actually encountered one situation which occurs when we change the block type from React-based to dynamic. If blocks have inner content area, then for some reason the blocks get shown inside themselves. It might be a WordPress bug. Anyway, we have a simple solution. What we have to do is to edit the page and recover the blocks. This fixes the problem. But from here on, everything should work normally. Whenever we make a change to the block, we can export the block and refresh the page. The change is immediately visible. Isn't that great? You might ask, what's the drawback of using PHP blocks? They are always up to date, and they remove all the hassle of having to manually update and resave every post where the block is used. Why don't we just use dynamic blocks and be done with it? The difference is in the editor. If we now go into the editor and we try to edit the dynamic block, we can't do any editing on the page itself. So we have to use the sidebar for all changes. Depending on how much editable content there is in the block, this is quite a big trade-off. Also, when we type, when we do every change, there is a slight delay because the block gets rendered on the server side. So the editing experience is kind of clunky. Not the best, right? Compared to this, editing React blocks is so much smoother. Now this leads us to our new hybrid blocks. Let's again go to the block action. This time we set the block type to hybrid. Hybrid blocks combine the best of React blocks and dynamic PHP blocks. When the block is shown in the editor, a React version is used. This gives us the seamless, snappy editing experience. But when the block is shown on the front end of the site, PHP version of the block is used. Normally, it would be a huge pain to create such blocks because you would have to create two versions of the block for each block. We would need to create a React version, which is difficult by itself, and then an additional PHP version. And then we would have to maintain these two versions whenever we change something. But with PineGrow, it's super easy. All we have to do is change the block type to hybrid and export the project. Then, in the editor, we get a smooth React-based editing experience with in-place editing. Every change happens instantly. There is no friction. There is no waiting, no delays. We can edit information right on the page. But when the blocks are displayed on the front end, we get the benefit of them being always up to date. Let's try if it works. Change the block again. Let's move this line below the title. Let's transform the title to H3. Export the plugin again. Refresh the page. Everything is up to date immediately. If we go into the editor, there is no need to recover our blocks. We can edit the content seamlessly through the block editor right there on the page. We get the best of two worlds. We get two blocks for the price of one. Changing such blocks is simple as well. Just do the change in PineGrow and re-export the project. There is no extra work involved. All that we had to do was simply change the block type to hybrid. We can do this individually for each block, or we can change the project plugin setting. In the settings, we have a block section where we can select the default block type. If we select hybrid block, then all the blocks that don't say otherwise will use project settings and will be hybrid blocks. This feature removes a lot of hassle and friction when using custom blocks on real-world WordPress sites. All our blocks are always up to date, and there is no need to recover blocks anymore. No need to resave the post to display the updated block. And we still get a smooth and snappy editing experience in the WordPress editor. New hybrid blocks in PineGrow really remove all friction from using custom blocks on WordPress sites. Enjoy!